Okay, today we are talking about cycling. But wait, before you're thinking, wait a second, I'm not a cyclist. I don't need to listen to this episode. We're specifically talking about women. So wait, guys, don't hang up yet. Don't push stop. If you are a female, obviously you're going to want to listen to this episode. If you're a male and supports a female, or you have friends or sisters or whatever, you definitely want to start list or keep listening to this episode because we are talking about cycling in terms of the menstrual cycle. Now, obviously, Dina, this is hugely popular, has been for the past few years, but we're going to spin this a little bit, aren't we? So I think it came across us a few weeks ago. It actually came across my computer a few weeks ago, and it piqued my interest. And just so everyone knows, I found this company that has sports nutrition products specifically for females. And that piqued my interest because, I went in my front pocket, which is, Dina, and I'm like, hey, Dina, have you seen this yet? Because she's my expert, right? Have you seen this yet? And she's like, OMG, we have
Yes.
to do a podcast about this. So just to set it all up, this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about specific supplements slash foods, but let's call them supplements that are on the market right now that are targeting women in different menstrual phases of their cycle.
Hmm.
Okay, Dina, that's my intro. Where are we going today?
Wow. Well, you had me at cycling because I thought, oh, at the last minute we changed our episode idea here, and that
Yeah.
was exciting too. I literally replied to you, OMG, capital letters
Yeah.
with product targeting the menstrual cycle itself, and that just gave us new, I guess, fodder to kind of look at some of these food products and some supplements, and just this whole notion of using food or supplementation to affect positively the menstrual cycle or the women's experience of the menstrual cycle,
Mm.
and whether that's objective or subjective. I wanted to say, Bob, there have been supplements, like if we think of pregnancy, right?
Hmm.
This
Yeah.
whole realm of targeting women's specific needs for a
Right.
life cycle stage like pregnancy, that's been around for a long time
Hmm.
and keeps evolving. I guess the point is this whole realm of food marketing, food innovation. We've got the science there in the background that we always need to be thinking about, and then the
Hmm.
actual experience. So it's not a brand new idea to create a food or use food to work with women's biology and physiology, but this area of like the menstrual cycle specific is exactly what we're more focused on today. I definitely have some thoughts and things that we all should be thinking about.
Well, I'm good because that's why we're here is to get your thoughts primarily, and then I'll add some, commentary obviously on the side. But let's, you bring up a good point. Like there always have been, specific female nutrition guidelines, I guess, not based on the menstrual cycle, but you brought up pregnancy and it got me thinking when my wife was pregnant, like, yeah, I mean, the key things we focused on were, oh, do you need to take a prenatal vitamin? What about
Yeah.
folate? Like all these things, right? And
Hmm.
then, afterwards, and even during, like when my kids were being born and stuff, we were actually looking at like EPA and DHA, like fish oil, omega-3 for brain health for the kiddos. But no, it's interesting you say that. But what is because you mentioned something to me, seed cycling. What is seed cycling?
That's been around for a good number of decades. I remember hearing about it when I was early in my becoming a dietitian phase. So,
Yeah.
some, 20 years ago almost now. The concept was using seeds, so pumpkin, flax, sesame, sunflower, and putting these in certain doses in the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle and then the luteal phase to mitigate some of the period symptoms that can occur, like cramping or
Mm,
bloating and some of these things. And so the point was, oh, wow, we can use these whole foods that contain minerals, fibers,
mm,
other phytonutrients, and maybe that can just help a woman's severity of symptoms around like day one of period or in that PMS kind of phase, and then help eventually too with those women who are finding they had irregular duration of menstrual cycles, that it might level that out. And so I think that piece there, Bob, with seed cycling, which there's not much at all in terms of scientific evidence to support that or show its
mm.
efficacy. I think has contributed and led into this cycle syncing with food and supplementation even further.
The first thing I thought of when you said that to me, when I saw it, I was like, I don't know why I thought of this, but gardening. That's the first thing that came to mind. It was gardening. I'm like,
Gardening.
and granted, not shockingly, like obviously this is not where I focus a lot of my time or my
Yeah.
specialty at all with this, but seed cycling, that's interesting because I'd never heard of it, but that it's starting to make sense though. Like if you
Yeah.
think about, I mean, Eastern medicine, I think is showing Western medicine so many great things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has been for decades. But I think it's to your point. I think that's probably what is really facilitating the start and the launch of a lot of the things we're seeing on the market. In addition to, let me just put my, I own a food company, a snack company, so I understand that side of it. There are so many resources out there that make it easy for someone to start a company like this, right? So I get it. Like you get the seed cycling, you get a little bit of little bit of science, little bit, and like okay, maybe there's something here, and now you've got all these resources at our fingertips to say, listen, if I have probably, depends on the company, of course. If I have less than $50,000, I can probably start a small company and be like, hey, why not? Right? We've got a
Yeah.
small amount of evidence. I guess why not? But also the question becomes why, right? Like where we're at right now, Dina, and I'm going to ask you this question with women's physiology research, we know that is becoming much more common in research facilities these days, which is fantastic. We know there are different things happening in the menstrual cycle with the different phases, but where are we right now in your professional nature, in your opinion, and where you scour the research? This is your jam, right? Where are we right now with knowing enough in women's physiology with the menstrual cycle and phases to be able to make that line, that connection of saying, oh yes, this bar or powder or pill or whatever, this absolutely belongs in our discussion now with the menstrual cycle in a female.
Ooh, gosh, Bob. Well, I
I know I'm
think
setting you up.
it's hot. It's hot. I think we have learned a lot more about women's physiology specific to menstrual cycle phases and nutrients involved, let's say, in each respective menstrual cycle phase. Some of that is pathways and mechanisms and metabolism of estrogen, progesterone, all that. But when you look at what does one nutrient in a menstrual cycle phase mean for all women on the planet,
Mm,
and to consume a product in a set dose, in a set form of product, the outcome, and you translate that from the pathway or the metabolic pathway or detoxification pathway, and you try and think of it in outcomes like what does it mean for all women? I think that is the problem right now. So I think
mm,
we've got research to show our needs can change across a menstrual cycle, but generalizing it into
mhm.
one food or one prescription, I think is the issue. I don't ever want to discount the innovation and have to still learn a lot more, but I think that's the thing, the translation to group or population.
And it's making some assumptions, right? So we're talking
Yeah.
about premenopausal, really, because we're talking about the menstrual cycle and in a, let's just use air quotes, normal menstrual cycle, right? But then the question begs, and these are the questions that I've had too. I'm like, well, what happens when a female goes into perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause? Like, if I just started like an energy bar for females and I'm targeting the menstrual cycle, so obviously the premenopausal females and maybe a little bit into peri, am I going to have like a bar for pre and then peri and then post and then like like
Yeah.
I don't think we have enough data right now to show what ingredients are absolutely necessary aside from like the macros. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a lot more research being done in like macros right now and a little bit in micronutrients, right? In terms of the different needs in the different phases, right? But how do you know, like I almost feel like these companies need to market and target towards premenopausal females if they're looking at the menstrual cycle, right?
I mean, that's what's being done, right?
Yeah.
I think what's happening, Bob, is that a lot of food companies that are creating products targeted towards menstrual cycle phasing or cycle syncing
Hmm.
is that they're using research studies that just talk about the nutrient involved. So, like if we think of a food ingredient and the nutritional profile, the research to support using that is, I don't want to say blown out of proportion, but it's like,
Mm,
well, this isn't really the context. We know magnesium can help with 100 different benefits in physiology, biochemistry, etc., but to put it
hmm.
in this dose in this food form, there's no exact research study to show this is going to help
Right.
you
Yeah.
with like inflammation at
Yeah.
day 25 of your menstrual
Right.
cycle.
Yeah. And not,
So,
we don't have that data yet. Hope maybe it's coming,
no.
right? I mean, it's pretty hard to say that there's going to be a research study that targets one specific nutrient in the menstrual cycle. Like that's going to be,
Oh,
it
yeah.
costs a lot of money to do research. And I would imagine they're going to look at more things than just one specific. Like who knows? I could be proven wrong. So what happens if, so we're talking about this subcategory of females in the premenopausal state. What happens if they are on birth control? And what type of birth control? Like, so these are some of the
Yeah.
questions that I have that literally I know some of my female athletes will ask me. Where's your knowledge based on that, based on if they are on birth control or not?
As far as like using a food or some of
Yeah,
these
like
foods
would
or
that same, so if they're not on birth control, let's say, let's you can pick whatever
yeah.
ingredient you want in this bar or powder or whatever, and we're going to highlight a few of these, right? But just pick an ingredient or two. Is that going to matter? Is there going to be a difference in efficacy in that product or ingredient with a female who is on birth control
Yeah.
versus not on birth control? And then secondarily, does it matter what type of birth control? Birth control?
I think it's going to depend who you ask. So if you're asking
Yeah.
me, I would say, Bob, there is a difference because of the exogenous nature. Like for oral contraceptive, that's definitely
Hmm.
controlling our hormone synthesis, regulation, all that differently than if we are naturally cycling without any sort of oral contraceptive in place. But it's like the significance or relevance that's the issue. So if I'm
Yeah.
having the 50 more milligrams of magnesium and I'm on an oral contraceptive, for example, how much difference in my lived experience is that going to make?
Right. Right.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the deal, is like relevance and significance
Yeah.
for each person. And we could reference some of our past episodes where we've talked about, the individual experience versus generalization for like, oh, women are better fat burners in our
Mm,
luteal phase. So
right.
therefore, if we're going to use one of these products that's marketed towards this, second half of your menstrual cycle, it's developed in such a way to support that generalization that women are better fat burners. So therefore, here's your
Mm,
nutritional profile that you need
hmm.
in your higher hormone phase. And I think that's the issue I'm having, Bob, is
Gotcha.
we're generalizing for all
Yeah.
women with this food product.
So that brings me into two different questions, different points. But is there a way, obviously we can measure fat burning through metabolic efficiency testing. That's easy. And
Yeah,
that's one reason why we know that generalizing that statement, which you said all females are great fat burners, we know that's not true because we've done the
right.
testing, right?
Hmm.
But is there, on the other side of it, are there tests right now that can help a female understand, maybe like if they're going to take, again, let's just go back to an energy bar that's formulated for women and it has X ingredient for women, specifically for a woman. I mean, you mentioned magnesium, but that's kind of, it's general anyway. But
Yeah.
I feel like these have benefits for men also. But anyway, let's go past that. But are there any tests for that female to say, oh, I can have this test done to see if I do need extra blank blank during my luteal phase or my follicular phase? Like, I haven't heard of any specific tests for that, although there are, like on a global scale, there are tests. There's genetic tests, there's obviously like Dutch testing, there's all these different tests. But is there something specific that a female can say, oh, I'm going to choose this energy bar that is marketed for me, the female, the premenopausal female who has a normal cycle. And I know it's for me because I know I need these ingredients based on my testing done in the luteal or follicular phase.
That sounds dreamy, Bob.
It
To my
does, doesn't it?
knowledge, there's not a good, robust test for that.
Okay.
And I know even on one of these food company websites, they, in their marketing, they're like 70% of menstruating women will have a nutrient deficiency related to menstrual cycle or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tried to find the citation for that. I'm like, well, in that case, yeah, how do we validate for this woman through testing?
Mm,
I mean, there's like iron deficiency, we can kind of get a, but how does that relate to the whole whatever number of day cycle for that woman
right.
across
Right.
a, training season or a year? And then trying to put in this static food that's got a controlled level of iron or whatever, and we're not even considering their daily intake, kind of
Yeah.
athlete they are. So,
Yeah.
to answer your question, I don't know of anything that is solid and robust enough from a testing perspective to then align a specific food product to menstrual cycle phase.
And I'm sure someone's trying to develop it right now. I guarantee it, right? But to that point, it's like there's a lot of unknowns here, and that brings me to
Yeah.
point two of my question is, okay, based on everything you were saying, and even like that magnesium example you gave with the 50 milligrams and everything. I mean, this is my big question. As a owner of a food company, a snack company, I battle this every time. I look at new things, or I look at trying to update or create things. Is what dosage of ingredient
Yeah.
is clinically relevant, and then if it is, if we know, let's just use your example of 50 milligrams of magnesium, just because you use that example. If I know that's clinical relevance, meaning that's the amount that we want in every serving to develop a specific outcome, how do I fit it into every serving? Does it change the taste? What type of magnesium am I talking about?
Yeah.
How does it change the shelf life? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of other things in the background that as a food manufacturer you also need to think about. But that's one of my biggest things. And again, it's kind of not my dietitian hat, it's my food company hat, is like, how do we know the dosage, and how do we actually get the dosage in each serving? That's the hard part.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
I was thinking of you, Bob, as, doing more research into specific companies that are offering these cycle specific or cycle syncing targeted products. Is like, okay, we have the nutrition side of things, but like as a food product creator or scientist, like, how do you make sense of all of this? So it's kind of like
Yeah.
back to you, the question,
Yeah.
because for the consumer, we're paying attention to price, taste, flavor, and that kind of thing. But then on your side is the potency or the efficacy, the
Hmm.
mouthfeel, the cost from your, overhead, all your expenses and
Exactly.
things. So,
Like, I don't mess with too many pills, powders, and potions in my snack products. I mean, the only thing I put in there is probiotic powder, and I was actually, that's my biggest example, because everything else is like, oh, how many walnuts am I putting in? How many almonds am I putting in? How
yeah.
much dark chocolate, right? Which in its own right is very confusing. I mean, people don't have any recollection of how long this process takes, because I wanted to, like, just in the background, I wanted it to be a specific, like, I want my energy bites to be a specific carbohydrate to protein ratio, right? So I need to play with those amounts, and that's just food I'm talking about. I'm not talking about supplements, right?
Yeah.
And but again, just to let you know, like in my creation of these, which takes months and months and months, just create one product, you have to try so many different outcomes of, and if I increase my walnuts or decrease my almonds or increase my tart cherries or whatever, like, what does that do to the ratios? But then what does it do to the taste, the
Yeah.
consistency, the shelf life, right? So all these different things. But here's my thing, like back to the probiotic powder, I know that, like, there's no way I'm going to get 10 billion, maybe 25 billion. I mean, I usually recommend, a side point, I usually recommend about 25 billion CFUs per, if someone's going to take a probiotic, right? So with that in mind, call it right or wrong, it doesn't matter. If I'm looking for 25 billion CFUs in a serving, and I'm looking at my energy bites, which are these little delicious squares, and two of them are one serving. I'm thinking, how do I get 25 billion CFUs? You would not imagine how much probiotic powder I would have to put in this recipe, D, which
Yeah.
it wouldn't taste good at all, right? So
Yeah.
here's my point. I put enough probiotics to be clinically relevant, but maybe everything and maybe all these different supplements. And I have not looked at these supplements that we're talking about. So I'm just going to throw out some ingredients that may or may not be in these supplements. But if you look like a greens powder, right? Greens powder have what, 50 plus ingredients, right? So you've got things like magnesium and ashwagandha and reishi and lion's mane and all this stuff. How do you know there's like, just because it's in there, how do you know, one, if there's like enough clinically relevant, but two, how do you know, especially if it's proprietary, which is a whole nother line of discussion, if something is a proprietary thing where you see on a label it just says proprietary blend and it lists a million different ingredients underneath it at 1,000 milligrams total, you have no idea how much lion's mane is in there or ashwagandha
Yeah.
or magnesium or what. So those are my issues from the food science perspective, is like, okay, just because ashwagandha is in there, is it actually, we know it's in there, but is it actually going to do something?
Yeah,
Or will a female
definitely.
need to eat like 5 of these bars to get the 600 milligrams or whatever of ashwagandha, which is a
I
clinically
know.
relevant dose? And then all of a sudden she's like, I'm not going to eat 5 bars. Like, who's going to do that?
Yeah. Tying that to a specific product that I had looked at, Bob,
Yeah.
it's a greens powder and it has
Oh,
a
okay.
phase one, phase two. So the intention is you use
Oh,
this greens powder for the first 2 weeks of your menstrual cycle, and then the
yeah.
other version of the greens powder for the second half of your menstrual cycle. And it
Hmm.
does feature a lot of vitamins, minerals that are in a good chelate or a good compound for
Hmm. Hmm.
absorption and all
Yeah.
that. So, like, you could look at these and be like, oh, okay, it's kind of like a multivitamin, and I can see the doses and everything like that. But to your point, with the greens blend and the
Yeah.
mushroom blend and the probiotic blend, proprietary
Right.
blends, and so they'll tell you how much and which greens, barley and wheatgrass and all
Mm,
that stuff, but I don't know how much of each of those are in this formulation. We could look at the total and then make some comments, like the probiotic blend. It does not list the CFUs. It does
yeah.
not list the exact, strain or anything either. And so that's where, for your
Mm,
money and for what we're trying to help, I professionally could not recommend this
yeah.
kind of product.
Okay, here's a question, and this is gonna maybe fire you up a little bit, increase your blood
Okay.
pressure, get you a little warm. But
Okay. Let
let me
me.
ask a question that a lot of consumers ask me sometimes when we're just talking about things like this, not this particular topic, but just
Yeah.
things like this. Like if I'm trying to kind of just not make a case, but like put all the information on the table, right? I've had this a lot from athletes, and I'm sure you have 2D. You've kind of it's almost like being in a courtroom, like you've presented your information, right, to support or not support, right, whatever, and you're like, hey, here's the thing, exactly what you said, the greens powder, there are this many ingredients, this is how much it costs, we don't know exactly how much our ingredients are in here because it's proprietary, and we just don't know. At the end of the day, I've had some athletes just say to me point blank, Dina, and I'm going to say it to you, so what, why should I care? If I think it will work, isn't it safe for me to take anyway? Even if there aren't clinically relevant doses? I mean, I see ashwagandha in there and someone's
Mhm.
telling me to take ashwagandha, so who cares? So what? I'm just going to
Yeah.
spend whatever, $80 a month on a greens powder. So how do you answer that question? How do you answer the so what? I don't care about the proprietary. I don't care how much ashwagandha is in there. I don't care about clinical relevant
Yeah.
doses. I just care that I'm getting ashwagandha.
I definitely consider risk. What are the trade offs or benefits versus risk reward,
Mm.
all that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and if you have endless budget, you're in good health, I would question, like, do you really know that this is safe for you when you're doing your
Mm,
own N of one? The contraindications, a lot of people don't understand that. And so there
right.
there is like these other inherent risks that people don't realize until something goes wrong.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's that one snarky attitude like, well, yeah, you can do whatever you want. I'll
Yeah.
be, you're providing me job security because you'll come back
Right.
around when things fall
Right.
apart. So, like, do whatever you want. And if you have the
Yeah.
endless budget, go ahead. But also try to angle that. Like, actually, for the money you invest, you can do so
Mm,
much more with this other approach, which is
yeah.
probably being more scrutinizing of what you're putting into your body. And if you're really
Yeah.
looking to ultimately support your own health and athletic performance, actually the time and money you invest in giving that attention up front saves you so much in the long run. So I kind of reason through it like that, trying not to
Yeah.
be as lengthy, perhaps, depending
Yeah.
on who the person is.
Would it make sense for a female to maybe use some of her financial resources to do some more in-depth blood work testing at different phases of her menstrual cycle prior to selecting a product like this? Or do you feel like, no, that's not even, like, we're not even there yet?
I would say depending on what is it you're struggling with. If you have symptoms that are affecting your quality of life, affecting your performance and recovery, your ability to improve fitness, improve the markers that you're looking for, or whatever your metrics are, there might be, some case then to do some specific testing certain days of the menstrual cycle because we do know there's some flux. I just don't know, again, generalizing that testing your iron level on day 5 versus day 19
Yeah.
across the board is going to be so different for each person. But that is something one-on-one you have to consider with your support team.
So maybe from what I hear you saying too is maybe looking at low hanging fruit first, right? Instead of just
Yeah,
jumping on the
yeah,
bandwagon of thinking a product will fix all of your symptoms,
yeah,
maybe going back first and addressing the blood sugar control, the stress, just a
exactly.
lifestyle stress, the sleep pattern, like all of that matters. And then maybe once you check those boxes, then yeah, maybe there is some good, proof or not proof, but support that yeah, maybe this is the next step. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely looking at your own situation, looking at complementary objective data to validate and try and find insights, right? And then, of course, Bob, like if we just go to these $8 a serving
Yeah.
powders and potions, like I can't guarantee that's going to do a darn thing for you if we
Right.
haven't
Right.
covered and managed, your recovery, your sleep. What is it you're doing for your own day, like all the stuff that we talk about
Yeah.
all the time, right? Nutrient
For
timing and
sure.
things.
Okay, Dee, I'm going to bring up a product that actually started this whole conversation
Oh
with us
yeah.
offline, and I'm not
Okay.
going to say the product, but it's just it's this is really what the catalyst was for this whole episode, right? And this is what got me because when I first saw this, and this is a protein powder specifically that I'm talking about that is targeted to women for menstrual cycle phasing for that. The first thing I did literally was I looked at the nutrition facts label because it has two different products for follicular and luteal, and I wanted to know just from the 20,000 foot view what is different with the macros and the micros, right? Not even
Yeah.
ingredients yet, but I just wanted to know. I'm like, okay, let's see what they're doing. And maybe this is insignificant, although maybe it's also significant, and I would love for you to tell me. But when I saw the two different phase protein powders, and when I saw that there was only I believe it was a 7 gram difference in carbohydrate and a 7 gram difference in protein,
Yeah.
and I don't know which one was which, but there was only a 7 gram difference of carbohydrate from phase 1 to phase 2 in the menstrual cycle, and same thing with protein. In my mind, and this was my thinking, was like, wow, that's really not enough. I don't know why I thought this, D, but in my mind, I was like, that's not enough to justify a different product per phase. I could be 100% off base and wrong in this, but that's where my brain went first, that's not a big enough difference to support a phase shift in nutrition. But I want you to tell me what's right.
Gosh, Bob, I know, and I'm trying to be very supportive of all the women focused, the movement that's
Yeah.
happening. Like, oh,
Yeah.
cool, awesome, all the innovation and all that stuff. However, this is not something I would recommend. The
Yeah.
impact for this kind of product, considering this is not the only food that a person's going to eat in a
Right.
day, like the
Say
I
it. Say
I
it.
know. Well, and
All our listeners are like, Dina, come on, you got to say
no,
it.
7 gram difference between carb and protein.
That's
And
like an
two,
egg. It's an extra large egg,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, they want you to consume this product on a daily basis,
Right.
nonstop,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So $3.50 some cents per day. I just can't see the
Okay.
utility of this kind of
Well, and
addition.
again, aside from the ingredients, because I looked at the ingredients, I'm like, oh, these are pretty solid ingredients.
I
Like, okay, no,
know. I
no,
know.
no crap in there. Like, I see
Yeah.
where they're going with this. But again, my first one was like, it's only a 7 gram swing for both carbs
Yeah.
and protein. I thought it would be more. I thought like you're going to justify a follicular product and a luteal product. I thought in my mind that there would be more protein for the luteal, like a lot more protein
Yeah.
than 7 grams, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe that's just my thinking, but I don't know. I mean, more than just an egg. But that's kind of what we're seeing, right? So we have this protein powder, and you've come across like bars too, like energy bars, right? What have you seen? I mean, what are just some of your thoughts there before we wrap up here?
Yeah, again, some of these bars that are targeted towards follicular phase versus luteal phase, the difference in the ingredients. Like, I'm not saying that the ingredients are worthless, they're good quality ingredients.
Yeah.
But just keep in mind, this is one potential food item across many in a day. So, like, quality of the ingredients, yeah, it could be something that could fit for some
Yeah.
people. I
Yeah.
think it's very not budget accessible for most people to spend 7, $8 on a chocolate bar or a nutrition bar that costs what 2 meals could cost,
Yeah.
Bob, where you get the
Yeah.
same kind of nutritional profile.
And certainly
So,
not daily. I mean, this might be something like a female picks up for, at the
no,
grocery store just to try it
convenience,
out.
a
And then she
convenience
eats it and she's like,
item.
yeah, it's fine. But she forgets about it later. And, it doesn't become part of her
Yeah.
program, is what I was saying. Yeah.
Kind of hesitating a little bit, just thinking of some of the consensus out there from some of the PhD researchers that are like, this is insignificant in the grand
Yeah.
scheme, and you need to just do the low hanging fruit every day.
Yeah.
On the other hand, yeah, I don't want to discount the person's experience and their willingness to try some things,
Yeah, for
but you
sure.
have to put this all in your own context. I'm just amazed at some of the innovation and marketing, Bob, which I know you appreciate too, in terms of the food production and everything.
Well, and I'll say this, Dee, I kind of feel like unless you would like to contribute a little bit more, I feel like let's each spend a few minutes on our concluding remarks,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So
Yes.
we're addressing the jury. These are concluding remarks. Here's my perspective. It's going to be pretty short and sweet, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think listeners, you've kind of gotten my vibe from this episode. But as a founder of a snack company, all around snack company, I really appreciate the innovation that these people are going through. I love it to death. I'm always looking at these things. I always look at ingredients and all this, in the macros and the micros. I so appreciate just this forward thinking, this entrepreneurial spirit, because that's what I've done, right? And I love that to death. On the other side of it, I just don't know if there is efficacy in, I don't know if it's the right time yet. I think that's where we're at. I think where we're at in female physiology research and menstrual cycle research, I think we're jumping the gun a little bit. Again, I appreciate the innovation, but I don't feel like we've got a lot of information and supportive research to say, oh yes, these are the ingredients at these dosages that need to be in there. And then of course, having the food service professionals figure out how to actually make it taste good. So those are my concluding remarks.
I definitely appreciate the food innovation and the food science. Definitely agree we're not there yet in terms of prescriptions in a food product. So I would say each person, like, you've got to learn your blueprint, your genetics, your context through objective testing and things, and then decide and working with someone if you're really wanting to optimize everything and solve problems to figure out where you're deficient and where your nutrient needs are. And then we figure out foods and maybe some of these products potentially that can help. But a lot of times it's going to be through a daily dietary pattern that can be adjusted for much less money than what you might spend on these kinds of products. So I don't think we're there yet, Bob, to have these kind of cycle syncing focused products to help women overall.
And there you have it, listeners. Brought to you by the Inside Sport Nutrition Podcast. Well,
Oh
I
boy.
appreciate all of your knowledge, Dina, and just coming on and we just chatting about this a little bit because it is pretty new. But here's the thing, listeners. If you've appreciated this episode where you did not hear one pause or one interruption, I don't know if you realize that, but there's no interruptions in our podcast and our episodes because we have no sponsors, right? We do this all on our own. So here's the thing. If you want to head on over to our Patreon account, patreon.com/ISN podcast, we want to form a conversation around these products specifically for females. So here's what we want to hear. We want to hear if you've used any of these protein powders, energy bars, anything. We want to hear your experience because listen, this is what's going to help everybody realize if these are efficacious or not, whether they are or not. We want to hear your experience, positive or negative, about these bars, these products, these protein powders. Tell us what you think. And at that same time, join our free community. This is where we interact with everybody, right? We answer questions. This is how you can communicate with both Dina and I. And yes, we do also offer some paid memberships because that is how we keep the lights on for the Inside Sport Nutrition podcast without having any sponsors. So with all of that said, head on over to patreon.com, ISN podcast. We love that you are hanging out with us. We so appreciate the time that you've taken throughout your day to listen to us. And hopefully this podcast has brought you great value in terms of a very, very new area of women's physiology. Thanks for listening.